Hello, welcome to the very first episode of the Borderless Work podcast. Today, we will talk about the past, my career as a podcaster, the present, why did I create a new podcast, and in the future, how this podcast will be structured and the goals of this particular podcast. In the past, I used to have a podcast, which is named Podcast on the Go. This is my old podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my podcast on the go.
And I made a poll in Instagram and in Facebook. Should I revive my hibernating podcast or create something new, like very narrow, very niche type of podcast? Because my previous podcast on the go, is very general, and I mainly use it as like an experiment to experiment types of topics, content, different themes, and so on and so forth. Right. And I decided, yeah, let's take this seriously because I just finished my whole learning and deep dive into the podcasting world after getting a podcast manager role for the past year. And I learned a lot. And I'm very giddy to apply all those learnings in terms of production, planning, and even interviewing. Yeah, so that would be a surprise in the future. Um, but before I was involved in that podcast, there were previous iterations, right? The previous iterations of the very first my very first podcast was I was with a group called C3 Cebu Content Creators, and we did like a bunch of trial and error stuff. So with my fellow content creator friends, we did some like a carcast, a car based podcast. It could be video, it could be audio.
Diri na ta video king.
Ako na tong ga-cosplay sa kilid
Di ko
niya.
kabaw si Liog. Saan na niya yung Liog? Di ko kabaw.
Ano?
And we just talk about nonsense, basically, and random topics. Another one that I did with my fellow content creators in C3 was that it was called the C3 Live. It was a live stream type of show slash podcast in a way because it's a live show, live stream, and we invite content creators as guests and we interview them. We talk about their life, their journey, why their purpose, their why.
Related question ko na follow-up is, being a content creator, di ka Raul Salvidos. Kung sa i-prepare para mag-grow ang channel?
Unsay
Prepare.
content.
More lang it, more
Content consistency.
Content creation. And we did that for about 12 episodes, I believe, 12, 13 episodes. And we got some sponsors. It was pretty cool. Yeah, those were fun times. At the same time, these were like pre-pandemic times. So it's a long, long time ago, like 48 years ago. Anyway, the next iteration of like the trial and error on my part, this was outside the C3, which was in a group called Certambayan community, wherein it's more business and finance type of topics.
Siguro different tools. No? Some credit card or loans or leverage kung kaya nila, no? Or they're used to it, or and others more on investment assets and ilang preference, and others katong pinaka basic or the lesser the risk. That's the trade off.
And the main language was more on Bisaya, English, Bislish, Tagalog, depending if there were people who joined in who were speaking Tagalog. And basically, the Certambayan live show is also a live stream that's limited to a Facebook group wherein we get some guests and queries about business finance, but mostly recently, the main concern at the time, or even today, even now, was trying to figure out all these weird fraudsters, scam offers, scam service offers, scam product offers that are being made, and we usually break it down and analyze those types of things and share to whoever is watching in the live stream, like how to avoid getting scammed, how to identify like scam or fraud, using common sense, using like discernment, and like a bullet point wherein how to identify those types of things so that you will not waste your money and you will not waste your time. Time is a valuable resource as well as money, right? So I did those things. Yeah, that's like 1 2 3 before do well also like while doing podcasts on the go, because at some point they intersected one another. um so those were very fun and I learned a lot. But the thing was, at the time I was just doing trial and error with friends and alone by myself. In 2021, I managed to secure a role as a podcast manager in a podcast marketing agency, marketing firm. I don't know what to call it. And yes, I've stopped creating content for like a good year since I wanted to focus in that particular role, and I also have fun um, doing that role. Like it was like, in a way, it was like a dream job. Like you're paid to watch and listen to a podcast while also getting paid to coordinate, to apply what I already know from a project management standpoint, as well as flex my creativity in like having different video creatives, meme videos, adverts, formal adverts, semi-formal adverts, like educational value based content. So it was fun. I learned a lot. Like some of the things I planned to learn, I managed to learn, and I also learned a lot of things that I did not plan to learn, such as sales. I've been immersing myself in sales for the past year as well. Um, in a way, I was like getting paid to learn, getting paid to experiment, getting paid to enjoy what I do. And of course, at some point, plans change, right? Plans change. Like I did not have like a long term. Uh, Usually, I do have long term plans to pursue, but things went haywire during the health crisis, during the lockdown, and it made me rethink, everything about my life, about my finances, about content creation. It made me rethink that I should be more in the present, even while at home. Because before I was in the moment in a way whenever I was um, in the great outdoors, like in hiking, because your enemies. It, it are the elements as well as yourself. If you limit yourself. Um, so that's why I still think I enjoy going to the outdoors, but now I'm more like, I'll spend more time with the family, bond with them in no matter how little, uh, in little ways. Because like yeah, I don't know what about you, but yeah, uh, the pandemic really like pushed me towards that direction, and then it's like a 1-2 punch, like a jab straight to the face. Like there's a saying that goes, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? So the pandemic was like the jab, a very strong jab, stiff jab to my face, and then the right straight was the super typhoon, Bagyong Odette, that happened around in December, and that was just like and knocked me out, like made me rethink about life again. um it really like changed my outlook. Like it was like the nail in the coffin. Like the nail that was the health crisis was already there, but then it got hammered further by that super typhoon. We were somewhat prepared, but then the aftermath was just ridiculous. Like 1 month without internet, water, like running water in our house, electricity. It was like a trial version of a zombie apocalypse without the zombies and just lack of resources and just survival mode. And yes, without internet, you will be forced to think, forced to revisit things that used to entertain you as a child. Without electricity, you're forced to talk more to your family members. um, like unlike the lockdown period, you still had internet even though you're at the house. You still kind of increased your talking to your family members and also chatting with your friends online. But during that 1 month trial apocalypse period, like there was no electricity, no comforts of the internet, and you really had to like talk to people at home. But then when you go out of the house, para magkausog tubig, to get water from an underground well, to go to a charging station, I kind of ended up talking to more people than planned. And that's like a very, very daunting task for an introvert. So, yes, that 1 month was also, in a way, paradigm shifting for myself, right? Now, enough about the past. What's about the present? What about this podcast? Why did I start this podcast? What are the goals for this podcast, and what's in the name, right? So, a borderless work podcast. Why borderless work? Why not remote work? Well, to be honest, it's just char lang. uh, Remote work is so common. Let's just use something that's different, but at the same time sounds cool, sophisticated. While at the same time, there's plenty of opportunities to rank for that particular keyword. Maybe, who knows? I may add some sub heading and additional keywords. But yeah, I ended up with Borderless podcast. The other option that I had was OFW 2.0, which is so weird. And I also realized I did not want to like clickbait in a way. Like it's easy to take advantage, like, oh, FW, and then add 2.0, right? So from OFW, regular OFW, which is like overseas Filipino worker, to the OFW 2.0, which is the online Filipino workers, right? I think that's the main shift that happened during the post health crisis, post pandemic, post lockdown era. So I started this podcast with four goals, right? First goal is to attract like-minded people, um, those who are involved in remote work. They could be an individual, they could be a business owner who have upgraded from freelancer to a business owner, or at the same time, I'm also curious about the horror stories about remote work, borderless work. So balancing out the good and the bad and the ugly, who knows, right? And second goal would be to help others uh, get started, maybe, right? Get started for free with the wisdom and knowledge from myself and potentially from the guests that I will be managing to invite into the podcast, right? But mostly, I mean, you can find the knowledge online, right? There's no question about that. Find it in Facebook groups. You can find it YouTube. You search for it in the Google search engine. But mostly, what's difficult to find is the wisdom of the experience that comes with it, right? The third goal is to create a place where I could document the journey and share and collate that best practice in different types of like areas of engagement, like lifestyle specific, maybe perhaps something specific in this industry, because different remote workers are involved in different industries, right? And different industries have different nuances that are involved there that we may not know of, or that I may not know of, right? And yeah, and that's, I think I articulated that properly, I think, because this is something I wish my predecessors or even like my remote worker heroes uh, would have done but you can't really force them. Some of them may or may not be, secretive. Some of them may just be introverts, like me, and then some of them are just focused on growing their network, growing their business, and that they don't have the opportunities to share, or they're not really interested in content creation and making their personal brand because they're focused on their business brand, for example, right? So hopefully that makes sense. And then the last goal is I got one, two, three, four. Yes, almost forgot the last one. So after we've gathered that particular information, hopefully we will be able to collate that and organize that properly, wherein I can share it with you so that you can go from here, like you're currently here and you want to go at this particular level, or another way to put it would be to get you a little closer to wherever you want to go. Yeah, I think that makes sense. uh, yes, I think that those are like the four goals of this particular podcast. Document, learn, knowledge and wisdom, experience sharing, and collate that particular information and share it to the world. Yeah, I like to keep it simple. I think it's simple. Maybe not. I'm not sure. In terms of structuring this particular podcast, I'm thinking of once again replicating the batch type approach, wherein like you have like season one is just all individuals, season two will be like business owners, season three would be like horror stories. I don't know, or I could swap it up. I could change it up, right? Not too sure yet, but we'll figure it out. But I learned this particular style from Julian CB, Mr. Jules, from the Creator Life podcast, which he also ended, and now he's now starting a new podcast, more inclined towards uh, tech type of topics. So shout out to Jules for that. For I learned something from Jules and it inspired me to replicate his approach, um, for better planning as well. And I can also pause in between. Yeah, it's the end of season one. Pause, then start season two, rather than have the forced weekly by weekly thing. I could still do that, um, but who knows, right? Who knows? We need to be flexible in our plans as well. Um, so yeah, that's I think that's most of it in terms of the plans for the future. Um, Hopefully, if you're watching this in YouTube, um, please comment on the comment section below to share your ideas. If you have any topic ideas, if you want to volunteer yourself as a guest, why not? Chok not, why not? Right? Comment suggestions, questions, clarifications. Let me know. I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities. And I think that's about it, really. Right? Um, Not sure how to end this particular podcast. I look forward to the journey of myself going through this podcast and sharing this journey with you. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And see you in the next episode. Peace.